Hello and welcome to the Next Generation Racing YouTube channel for a very, very special video. Usually myself and Jack, we'd be reviewing the action from the weekend and we'd be discussing horses going forward to look for, but unfortunately we didn't get the big action that we were looking for from Newbury, and a lot of courses called off. We had to settle with the all-weather action, which for the flat boys I'm sure wasn't too much of a problem. But I know that we wanted to see some of the top class jumps meetings going ahead, and that will be going ahead on Sunday this week, Newbury, which is excellent to see that they've rescheduled that. And Jack and I will be previewing that towards the middle of this week, where we'll be previewing the likes of Wincanton, Newbury, Riyadh for the Saudi Cup meeting, which is going to be really exciting. Jack and I are getting stuck in some top class flat action over there. So very much looking forward to that. But today we've decided to do something very different and something that we really want to introduce to this channel. Once we get our sort of full setup going, Jack and I are going to have a really nice looking studio. We want this to be mainly about horse racing, but also have the option of talking about big sporting events on the weekend. You know, if there's big boxing matches, big football matches, we want to quickly discuss them with you. So we've decided today to look ahead at some of the big sporting events coming to us this year and maybe sort of up towards the summer period. And we might do a video like this again if this goes down really well. And we're going to kick off and actually look at the football at the moment and the things that are happening in the Premier League. Now, it looks like a foregone conclusion with regards to the Premier League, but the current table is looking like this. Manchester City on 53 points with a game in hand. Manchester United 46 points. Leicester 46 points. Liverpool 40 points. Chelsea 39 points. And they've also got a game in hand. Now, Jack, it just looks like Manchester City, the way they're playing this season, look like they're back to their old selves. And the fact that they haven't got Aguero or Kevin De Bruyne playing for them recently just shows how fantastic they're playing as a team.
Yeah, it's quite hard to look past City at the moment, isn't it? As you say, 7 points clear of a game in hand. I think it's 23 games unbeaten, 16 wins in a row, and without Kevin De Bruyne or Aguero. I mean, the football they're playing, you just can't really see anyone coming over the top. Diaz and Stones have been an absolute revelation. I mean, credit to Stones because he's keeping Laporte out of the team. And usually on the Guardiola merry-go-round, that gets changed, but it hasn't with Stones because he's been playing so well. And it's been a strange season for everyone except for City. I mean, Man U, there's been blips. Liverpool, there's been blips. Chelsea, there's been blips. But with City, they're just almost hitting cruise control. And I think Liverpool are a bit of an interesting one because Roy Keane at the weekend said Liverpool are bad champions. Now, what do you make of that, Sam?
Yeah, well, no, I did. This is a topic I was really looking to discuss, and the fact that Liverpool, you know, they've won the title. They were so impressive last season, and they've just kind of fallen to bits. And there's been all the excuses with the injuries and whatever with regards to their options. But I don't know. I think the wheels have just come off. They might have just become a bit complacent in the league, and I don't know. They look like a team who just need potentially they need to add to the side in the summer. They just need to have a look at areas that they could develop. Salah is still an excellent player, but we're not saying he's as good as he was when he first joined Liverpool. We remember the superstar Salah that was scoring all the time. Now, I wouldn't say he's at the same level as he was, then. I think defensively, they just need a bit of reinforcement. They've got the likes of Van Dijk and, they've got Trent Alexander-Arnold, Robertson and stuff, but they haven't really got anyone if they get injured to replace them. It's become very, very difficult for them. In terms of the Champions League spots, I mean, we've got to look at them, the top four. Chelsea for me looked like a side who under Thomas Tuchel could be it could be a really good management change for them. He's an excellent manager. He's proven that at PSG, and I do think that he could get that team really firing. And someone like Werner, he hasn't exactly fired under Lampard, but it'd be great to see if Tuchel could get Werner firing. I know that he's French and Giroud's French, so Giroud's getting a couple of games at the moment. But what do you reckon about the top four at the moment, Jack? It is a really interesting one to look at.
Yeah, it's weird because Chelsea's team on paper is sensational. I mean, Ziyech last year for Ajax was set the world alight. You have Werner, obviously. Who else do they have? They have Havertz, who's come in as well, but none of them have been firing. I mean, Chilwell's the only one I think has been absolutely firing at left back. That's been the best signing, in my opinion, for them. I think it was a bit harsh sacking Lampard, if I'm being honest. And I know Thomas Tuchel's meant to be just loves football, so almost like a Marcelo Bielsa type figure of how much he loves football. But I think my dad's dog would be able to manage PSG, if I'm being honest, in the Farmers League. But I think Everton are looking at a great side at the moment. I don't know if they'll be able to push the Champions League spots, but on paper, I think their signings this year with Allen and Rodriguez have been great signings. Calvert-Lewin's been unbelievable up top. I'd love to see Everton pushing it, and obviously Tottenham. They've been weird because Kane, when he's been playing a little bit deeper, almost like a number 10, he's been unbelievable linking up with Son and his assists. I think he's the highest assist maker in the Prem, if I'm being correct.
You might be right, yeah.
Yeah, so I think Tottenham have definitely got to be in with a shout of pushing top three. Leicester, I hope, can keep it up. Jamie Vardy obviously was back, huge result against Liverpool, but yeah, it's an interesting one, that top four.
I think if Tottenham don't manage to get into that top four and really do struggle, I think Kane will be gone at the end of the season. I think someone like United will take him. I'd be disappointed if he went abroad, personally. We've seen a lot of players. Sometimes they do make their careers when they go to the place like Spain, but sometimes it can just all fall apart a bit for players. So I'd like to see him go to somewhere like United. And United look like a team that are developing well. They are going to potentially become a really decent side, challenging for the title once again. I wouldn't be looking at Ole Gunnar Solskjaer leaving yet. I think he's really developing that side. He's a manager that needs a bit of time. Nicely, Leicester still at the top of the game. You know, I wouldn't say they've got the best side in the world. When you look at it on paper and you compare it to other sides, you wouldn't say that, you know, if you were compared, say, a central midfielder from Leicester to a central midfielder from Liverpool, you'd be saying, oh, the Liverpool central midfielder is better than the Leicester one. Like, their team doesn't look like it's amazing on paper, but they just seem to gel so well as a team. And that's how they won the league, in my opinion. They didn't have the best players in the league, but they had the best team going. So it's nice to see them back up there. I think in terms of the relegation zone, Sheffield United look gone. That's probably decided now. I think they're on about 12 points. I think they are actually playing whilst we're filming this video, so I don't know what's happening there. But Newcastle are also a team who I think are in a bit of trouble. I was looking at their last 13 games in all competitions. They've only scored 7 goals there. They're just lacking goals in Newcastle, and I do think that they're going to be in a bit of trouble. And I think Liam Hedgecock will be probably agreeing with me on that, being a Newcastle fan. I'm sure he's probably watching this video. And Jack, with regards to that relegation battle, like I say, sort of Sheffield United and Newcastle might be the ones in trouble. Who have you looked at in terms of the teams that might be getting sort of sent down this season?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people say that the three at the bottom are already gone, but I mean, Fulham's win at the weekend was a huge win, and West Ham have just won 3-0 against Sheffield United, it seems. So there's 7 points between Fulham and Newcastle. And Fulham's next 3 games, they got Burnley, Sheffield United, and Palace. Whereas Newcastle, they had Chelsea tonight, they have Man U, Wolves, and then West Brom. But I think the big thing for Newcastle is they got no Callum Wilson until April. Now, Callum Wilson has been great for them up top, and without Callum Wilson, I just can't see where they're going to be scoring goals. They're okay at the back, but I just can't see where they're going to be scoring goals. So I think Fulham, actually, they're playing some okay football. They've made some decent signings. They're actually keeping in clean sheets now, which is a little bit scary with Areola in goal. He's making some nice saves. So I think Fulham could be the ones, if any of the bottom 3, to put a challenge to Newcastle. I think it could be Fulham.
Oh, right. Okay. Very interesting. And we mentioned the Champions League there, Jack, and the English side's always wanting to win that. But let's just look at the betting for the Champions League at the moment. With that starting, well, this week, the Champions League matches are going ahead. But Munich are the 11-4 favourites, City 3-1, Liverpool 13-2, Juventus and PSG 12-1, Atletico 14-1. It's mad to say that Barca are 14-1 for a Champions League and Madrid are 16-1 for a Champions League. It's absolutely crazy. Real Madrid there 16-1 and 20-1 bar those. Now, got some excellent games coming to us this week. I know this video should be out by Tuesday afternoon. So the likes of Liverpool taking on RB Leipzig. We've got Barcelona versus PSG, which is going to be an absolute corker. Man City versus Mönchengladbach and Atletico versus Chelsea. It's a real good weeks of action, Jack. But the one trophy that Pep Guardiola and City have always wanted to win is the Champions League. And I'm looking at the betting at the moment thinking 3-1 is not a price I'd want to be taking. But I think if they're going to win it, it could be this season.
Yeah, I think they've kind of hit cruise control in the Prem, and if they can keep doing it without Kevin De Bruyne and Sergio Aguero, there's no reason why the Champions League is going to stop them. I think, as you say, with Real Madrid and Barcelona, absolutely ludicrous, but they just haven't been firing the Liga. I mean, Atletico are 5 points clear with 2 games in hand. And that's pretty mad. But I think Bayern Munich are worthy favourites. They got Lazio now in their first leg of the knockouts, and then I think Gnabry and Lewandowski have just been unreal for them. And I think that could continue. But yeah, it could be City's year. But I hope Bayern Munich will be able to spoil the party.
Yeah, we mentioned about Liverpool just a minute ago when we talked about the Premier League, and you know they may we don't know yet, but they may struggle to stay in that top 4. It might not happen, and if it doesn't happen, they're a team who love the Champions League. We know how famous some of their Champions League nights have been at Anfield, and potentially this could be a way of getting into the Champions League next season. And I wouldn't write them off 13-2 of pulling off a shock and going and winning this tournament. With regards to Munich, they're always a team. They always sit there, the favourite for most competitions that they enter. And in my opinion, they don't always come through and pull it off. In their league, yes, they do. But when it comes to something like the Champions League, they're often very short for something like this. And they'll get picked up by something like PSG or Juventus. Something will just go a bit wrong for them. What do you make of that Munich side at the moment, Jack?
Yeah, I think Champions League is just so hard to call as it is because it's usually the team that just performs on a big night and usually have a worldie of a goal, whether it's Ronaldo, whether it's Bale, Mandzukic, or whatever. There's always someone to pull out the bag who you're not really expecting it. And that Bayern Munich team, even though it looks great on paper, as we say, all it takes is for one big night from a side, of course, where there's no fans as well. So who knows what kind of repercussions that's going to have on the team. But all it takes is one big night to cause a little upset.
Yeah, and PSG as well in there, 12-1 currently. They're a team who have some excellent firepower. There's no doubt about it. But they've kind of slipped up in the latter stages of the Champions League in recent years. And it's going to be an interesting one with them because I'd love to see them go and win it again this year. I think this will be it could be a really, really tough call, this Champions League. I think there's some real close calls. And the match against Barcelona is going to be absolutely huge. But the way that PSG are playing and the way Barca are kind of playing at the moment, they have hit a bit of form at the moment, Barca, but I'd probably expect PSG to pull through. What do you reckon will happen in that game there, Jack?
I still don't really fancy PSG just because they play in the French league, and I think they got so many weeks off that when it comes to the actual showtime, they're not there. I think Neymar's a bit overrated as well, and Mbappe's class, but I think that Barcelona Messi's just started to hit a bit of form. So he scored an absolute worldie at the weekend when they won 4-1, I think it was, and I hope that Barcelona will be able to pull through.
Yeah, it's going to be a great one. We'll be interested to hear your comments down below as well with regards to all of this, all of the events. We'd love to hear what you think with regards to the sporting events we're talking about today. So that's it for the club football, and then we'll move on. Right, we'll go on to national football now, and it's obviously a rearranged tournament. This the Euros that were meant to be taking place last year due to COVID didn't go ahead, but they should be going ahead this year, and we're really looking forward to this. And the betting for the Euros looks like this at the moment: England and France, most places joint favourites at around 5-1, Belgium 11-2, Netherlands 7-1, Germany 15-2. Spain 15-2, Italy 11-1, Portugal 12-1, and Croatia, who were the World Cup runners-up, were 28-1. They're a fair price there. We look at England's group. We're obviously going to discuss England due to the fact that we're both English lads. England have got Croatia, Scotland, and Czech Republic in their group. Now, it's not an easy group, that, Jack. I mean, Scotland is going to be a good little rivalry battle there. Yes, we're much better than them. We know what happened in the rugby, which we'll talk about in a few moments' time, but Scotland pulling off the shock in the Six Nations against England. But it's not an easy ride for England in that group. We can't sort of sit there and go, do you know what, we're going to cruise through that group with teams like that in there. What do you make of England's chances going into the Euros?
Yeah, I think we have a good chance. I mean, we saw in the World Cup that we had some really nice young players coming through, especially now Grealish is starting to cement his place in the side, thankfully, even though Gareth Southgate doesn't look almost pleased with it. I think Mount gets a little bit of abuse, quite like unjustifiably, but I think the only place where we've got a real question mark is goalkeeper. I mean, would you go for Nick Pope? Would you go for Jordan Pickford? Would you go for Henderson? Perhaps. What do you think?
Yeah, well, this is what I said. Like the team that we had, it's very similar to what I was mentioning about Leicester earlier. Is that England team just seemed to gel together so well in that World Cup? There was absolute scenes. That whole summer was one of the best summers we've all had. But you know, the team seemed to gel together, and there was something quite special about it. And Pickford's obviously going to go to that World Cup, and it will be interesting to see who Gareth Southgate has in line for that number one jersey come the Euros. But I personally think he's going to go for Pickford. What do you make of it?
I love Nick Pope. I think he's a great keeper. I mean, he gets a lot of work in between the sticks for Burnley. He's made the second highest saves in the Prem so far, just behind West Brom's keeper. And I think Nick Pope will be a great addition. I think Jordan Pickford's had it a bit easy the last couple of years, but then again, I think he does get some harsh criticism. He makes the odd howler, which we've seen. You look at the Origi mistake or whatever it may be. He does make the odd howler, but he also does command the back four really nicely. You always see him screaming a lot more than you see with Nick Pope and Henderson. Of course, Henderson's not getting the game time for Man U, but I think in that department he does command the back four, and obviously we don't know the ins and outs of it, but if that's something that really needs to be essential to the way England play, then Pickford would be there. But as a shot stopper, I think Nick Pope's number one.
It's going to be very interesting. And looking at the rest of the betting, the likes of Belgium, who we know have some fantastic firepower, they're sitting there at 11-2. And, Germany, Spain, and Italy, in previous years, you wouldn't have seen them at prices bigger than 15-2 for tournaments like this. They were superb teams. And Spain, they're kind of coming through with younger players now. That's what I've started to notice looking at that Spanish squad. They're slowly coming back to fruition. And Germany, again, another consistent performer, and maybe the Euros is going to be better suited to them than the World Cup. They're a team that looked like they were developing quite nicely. Italy, a team that I haven't actually fallen in love with, but I could see them potentially being the shock of the Euros. And I think 11-1, 12-1 in places, I think they'd be a good price for the Euros come this year. Jack, who do you reckon the winner could be outside of England? We all want to say England will win it, but who do you reckon is going to be the winner?
Belgium team's outrageous, isn't it? It's absolutely outrageous. Everywhere you look on that team sheet is absolute pure class. And now Lukaku's in top form. I think it's 16 goals in 21 matches in Serie A, 4 goals in 5 in the Champions League. Now he's hit top gear and he's found some great form, which he couldn't find at Man U. Found at Everton, couldn't find at Man U. I think Belgium are definitely the ones to beat. It's weird because Belgium always go into tournaments like second favourite when you look down their team sheet and how good it is. But I don't know if it's they don't gel well or they just all play as individuals, but they don't ever really seem to fire. It's an odd one, but I think that this year is probably their year. If not, we'd love England to win it.
Yeah, of course we would. And France, obviously, World Cup winners. They're 5-1. But what do we make of the fact that Croatia are 28-1 and they made that World Cup final? Do we think that Croatia are slightly overpriced, or do we think that their World Cup was just a bit of a shock?
A bit of both, really. I don't know if it was a complete shock because Modric had the tournament of his life, didn't he? Really, Rakitic played well as well, but you don't really see too much of Croatia these days. In the Nations League, they've been okay, but you can't confidently put them up against the likes of France, Belgium, even England again confidently and said they'll be able to turn the tables there.
Right, moving away from football now, and we're now going to look at the big golfing events for this year. And we'll kick off with the big one, the Masters over in the US. The current betting roughly looks like this. Dustin Johnson, 11-2. Remember, he had the record-breaking 20 under last year. We've got Bryson DeChambeau, 10-1. Rory McIlroy, 10-1. John Rahm, 11-1. Justin Thomas, 11-1. Brooks Koepka, 12-1. And Jordan Spieth, 18-1, and we've got sort of 20-1 bar those. Now, Jack, it's always great, this event. You often see bookmakers going 10, 12 places on this, and everyone loves a big each way bet. You won't ever see a Masters tournament where I haven't backed Hideki Matsuyama at 33-1 each way, who always seems to be a consistent performer and a player who I'd love to see win this. Now, the player we would all like to see win this is Rory McIlroy, of course. We'd all love to see him go, win the Masters, and probably end up, if he did do something like that, winning BBC Sports Personality of the Year. Jack, we know you're a big golf fan. What did you look at looking at these?
I mean, the Masters is just a weekend of pure bliss, isn't it? It's just, for me, it's just a weekend where the world stands still and you can just look to as it was, the autumnal swaths of Augusta. And it doesn't seem long ago that DJ won. Of course, it wasn't, because it was the first autumn Masters, and that 20 under was just insane. He was just devastating day in, day out, and it was a bit annoying because you always like to head into the final day not knowing which way it's going to go, but he was just absolutely clinical, wasn't he? And the Masters is great to have a punt on. I'm by no means an expert, but like Hideki Matsuyama for you, I love following Xander Schauffele off a cliff. Goodness me, he's 18-1 at the moment, isn't he? But for my sins, I mean, he's got 5 top 10s from his 7 PGA Tour appearances. He's been knocking on the door for the last 2 years. Of course, he was runner-up in 2019, or joint runner-up in 2019 at the Masters, and I'd really love for him to win a major. He's definitely been knocking on the door. And Victor Hovland, he's a young European player, as we'll come on to for the Ryder Cup, but he's just so consistent. I mean, he's currently 5th in the FedEx Cup, and he's 7th in strokes gained off the tee, which you don't really expect from him because he's not really that like the biggest bloke in the world. But if you could just improve his short game a bit, I think he's definitely there for 45-1 for the money. And one that was really interesting, which you pulled out there, was Jordan Spieth. He's just finding his form. I mean, he was tied 4th in Phoenix, tied 3rd just at the weekend at Pebble Beach, 2 eagles, hole outs as well, and the last 2 years, he just hasn't really been doing anything. His confidence has been so low, and he made a comment. I think it was he's finally starting to feel a bit of confidence in his game, and I think that things could start to fall into place. I think 2021 is a little bit short considering the form he's been in, but if those things do start to fall into place, you know how much he loves Augusta, eh?
Yeah, well, I noted down 3 players, Jack. One was Hideki Matsuyama, one was Xander Schauffele, who was 7 under last year, and Spieth was the other one. Now, like you say, Spieth hitting form at the moment, and we know how well he plays round Augusta. You say he might be too short on what he's done, but he might be overpriced come the day if he has hit the form. And 20 to 1 at the moment could look quite good. Now, I have been in contact with someone who knows their golf quite well, and they gave me a young golfer to keep our eye on, who was 6 under in the Masters last year, and that's Cameron Champ at 100 to 1. 25,
Champ.
25-year-old US boy who's up and coming, and yeah, 6 under last year. Speaking to this guy, he says that he could have potential improvement, so he might be one at the bigger prices, 3-figure odds, 100 to 1. Cameron Champ for the Masters.
I think it was last year that he was actually the longest driving distance. I think it was like a 360 yards or something. He's a big boy and he hits that ball very, very clean. So yeah, Cameron Champ's definitely one to look out for, as you say.
That's it, yeah. And I think that potentially if he did improve his short game, it sounds like he could be one to watch. So the ones to watch for Jack and I in the Masters seem like it's going to be Spieth for me, along with Hideki Matsuyama and Xander Schauffele. And Jack, for you, the Masters picks?
Victor Hovland, because he's the most consistent player on tour. Xander Schauffele, because I'm going to follow him off a cliff till he wins his first major, and it's rather when than if. And of course, Jordan Spieth.
There you go, Victor Hovland, Jack's Gary Moore of the sporting world, the one that he just follows off a cliff constantly. And looking forward to seeing Goshen this weekend in the Kingwell Hurdle. I knew that I'd be able to get that in somewhere. Let's just quickly discuss the Ryder Cup then, Jack, and we'll only briefly touch upon this. But USA currently the 11-8 on favourite. A tie would be 12-1, and Europe are 11-8. So switching odds there. Now, we love the Ryder Cup, a really exciting event. Team events are great, very similar to the kind of thrill we get of it. It's not exactly the thrill we get, but like the Presbury Cup, England versus Ireland, we have that reference there, and it does make it more exciting and something to kind of battle it out with another team. And Europe versus the USA, it's always fantastic. And Jack, who are we siding with?
You don't want to say it, do you? But you don't want to say it. Yeah, but the USA do hold a very strong hand. They do every year, but I think this year is going to be a bit different because I'm not sure how much of a crowd will be able to get in. And you look at players like Patrick Reed, Rory McIlroy, Ian Poulter, they all play so well under this Ryder Cup crowd. They all get absolutely massively up their game with it, and obviously some don't play as well, but it depends how many fans they can get in. Really, it could be the first Ryder Cup in a while without Ian Poulter, which would be absolutely devastating. I'm not sure if he'll get a wild card or not, but yeah, it's hard to back Europe, but you'd love to see them win it, wouldn't you? I mean, like the miracle at Medina, that was just one of the greatest weekends of sport, one of the greatest comebacks ever. When Martin Keimer holed that putt on 18, and of course Francesco Molinari then went to half his match with Tiger Woods and we won it outright. That was just unreal. But yeah, obviously we need Europe to win it, but I'd probably side with USA at the moment.
Yeah, I'd be siding with the USA as well. And like you said, Ian Poulter, he's just a man who thrives off the Ryder Cup atmosphere. And without a crowd, you'd suspect he might not be as useful as he usually is. He loves the crowd and really gets them going. So, yeah, I'd probably be saying the USA would be the ones to side with in the Ryder Cup. But it could be a very close contest, and we're looking forward to that one come later this year. Okay, now on to a bit of the boxing world. We're only going to discuss one fight here, and that's going to be Fury versus Joshua. Now, we have got a big fight coming up on the 6th of March, which is White versus Povetkin 2. That's going to be really exciting. We're all looking forward to that. But the one that everyone's looking forward to, and the one I think it's likely at the moment to be taking place in June, I don't think it's fully confirmed yet, but Fury versus Joshua, the one that's going to sell out on box office like no other. I'm absolutely buzzing for this one. Joshua is currently 11-8. A draw is 22-1. And Tyson Fury is 15-8 on. Now, Jack, it's going to be some fight with these two heavyweights in the ring. I mean, I've looked at it from a distance and I've sided with Tyson Fury, and I'll tell you why in a second. But who have you picked?
Well, it's going to be one of the best fights I've ever seen in my lifetime. Definitely, I've always been umming and ahhing over Fury, and of course, then Joshua lost, and then Fury. Like the deal breaker for me was Fury Wilder 2. He schooled Wilder for 7 rounds, and I remember I was in Amsterdam at the time actually, and I woke up at 4 a.m. to watch it on my laptop, and I must have woken up the whole building by the seventh round because he was unbelievable, wasn't he? And of course, Wilder Fury won when he resurrected in the last round, and Wilder was already blowing kisses, wasn't he, off the side of the ring? But yeah, I think I will side with Fury. It's obviously quite hard to say. We don't know when it's going to be, b if they're going to have any other fights beforehand. We don't really know because Eddie Hearn definitely won't be arranging it if there's no crowds, that's for sure. But the one thing I hope is that it's in England. I mean, it'd be an absolutely devastating if it was in America or Saudi Arabia. Or that for me would be a biggest loss for sport.
Yeah, I think Wembley's just got to be the destination. It's got to be. I'd be fuming if it was in the USA, and us English, for two English fighters, we'd have to wake up at 2, 3 a.m. to watch this fight. I'd be so frustrated. But yeah, hopefully they can get it sorted, and hopefully they can get it in the UK. I do get the thing that there's potentially more money out in the USA and stuff like this, but for a fight like that, you need the best crowd possible, and an English crowd is everything you need there. But I sided with Tyson Fury on the basis of the fact that he's probably the best tactical boxer out there at the moment. Joshua is a huge, huge puncher. If there's going to be a knockout in the fight, it's going to be Joshua knocking out Fury. But I think it's going to have to be early. If this goes past the 5th, 6th round, I do think that Tyson Fury will have it in the bag. Tactically, he's just genius. He was boxing from a much younger age. He seems like a much more natural boxer, in my opinion. And he just seems to, in terms of mind games, Joshua isn't my favourite in terms of mind games, but Tyson Fury is just a genius with it all. And I know Joshua will probably say that it won't affect him, he'll ignore everything, but Tyson Fury is just very, very clever. And I think that it could get to Joshua a fair bit, but tactically, I think Tyson Fury could play this absolutely superbly. But Joshua, if he does want to win this, he's going to have to go big in the first few rounds. So a really, really exciting fight, Jack. We're looking forward to that, as much as we are also looking forward to White Povetkin too. But that's going to be a hell of a fight later this year. Right, let's go on to the rugby now, and we're 2 weekends into the Six Nations, and we'll currently look at the betting for it. And France are the 7-4 on favourites, England 100-30, Wales 11-2, Scotland at 12-1, Ireland 100-1, and Italy 1,000-1. Now, it was a hell of a match at the weekend. I was there watching Wales versus Scotland, which was an absolutely spine-tingling match and a great performance from Wales. But again, like the football, we need to start where England lie and where it looks. Now, the first game, it was a nice performance from Scotland. It was actually quite nice to see in some ways. It was huge for them. They're probably never going to get that moment again because we're a better side and we know that. But England, I don't know, defensively they didn't look good, Jack. And in my opinion, I think they're a team that they're using this tournament as like a prep to go to the World Cup. They're sort of trying different things, and it might not be working as well as they want at the moment. They obviously had the weekend win over Italy, which is a win that they should be getting, but they looked a bit sort of clumsy in areas. What did you make of England's performances?
Yeah, I don't know if it's a prep for the World Cup just yet because you got another couple of years before the World Cup. Obviously, the disappointment against South Africa, but I think the instrumental thing with England is when we lack discipline. We lacked discipline against Scotland, and defensively we weren't great. Watson and Johnny May weren't allowed to fire on all cylinders, and we couldn't really find anything from there. It was just very lackluster. Scotland obviously played very, very well. We can't take that away from them, and they played very well against Wales as well. I think the red card was a little bit harsh, if I'm being honest. But yeah, England, it was a decent enough performance against Italy. Johnny May flying through the heavens for that try, man. That was unbelievable. Yeah, I mean, it's an odd time with England rugby because we got a very similar team as we did have for the World Cup, but we're just not really performing as well. And I think the Six Nations revolves around France and more specifically the best player in the world, Antoine Dupont. I mean, I don't usually get giddy when I'm watching a rugby player, but Antoine Dupont at scrum half is just insane. He's so good. Everything he does, he's just so instrumental behind everything France do. And he looks like he has so much time and he's just so skillful. And it's quite rare for us to see a scrum half like that. And I do relish watching him play.
Yeah, and I think the France have looked fairly consistent in both their performances so far, and they're odds-on favourites for a reason. I think they're going to be really, really tough to beat, and they take on Scotland this weekend. Wales versus England, which is going to be a hell of a matchup. It really is. England, I think they're 5-2 on favourites for that at the moment, but I wouldn't be writing Wales. I think they're even money with a +7 handicap, so they might be worth a bet at that if you're an even money backer. I was having a look at all the special prices and stuff, and Italy versus Ireland. Italy looked like a team who, yeah, I don't know how to describe Italy, because they can sometimes put in big performances, but they're full of a lot of young players, and again, maybe a developmental side at the moment, and could sort of come better in the next couple of years. And when I said England are using this as a development sort of tournament for the World Cup, I don't think they're trying as hard as they usually would for a Six Nations. I think they are trying a few different things to test out moving forward. They're going to have new players coming through, younger players, and I just think that they're preparing themselves for the future. And I wouldn't be backing them at 100-30 for this tournament, but I think the World Cup in a couple of years' time could be theirs. I think they have got some smart players, and they really do look good. But Wales are a team that I've always enjoyed watching Welsh rugby, Jack. I don't know about you, but obviously it's the home of rugby. They do love it there, but I've always found them quite exciting to watch. I don't know about yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still kind of a bit annoyed over 2015 when we got knocked out by them and Dan Biggar kicked us off the pitch, really. But yeah, I mean, they're very exciting when George North was in gear, of course, and Sam Warburton and such. But these days, I think I just relish watching Sam Underhill for England. He's just obviously being a Bath fan as well myself. Bath with a great win over Sale at the weekend as well. Friday night, that was a huge 27-22 win. But yeah, I think Wales are an exciting team, don't get me wrong, but I don't think they have the spark that France do or England do. And even I'd probably prefer to watch Scotland the way they're playing at the moment. I think they're very unlucky at the weekend, and I think that they're actually playing very well.
They are playing very well at the moment. And I think we've both decided that probably France is the most likely winners, Jack, would you say?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it seems that way at the moment. So they're not a price at this moment in time, but France seem the most likely winners of the Six Nations, and we've got a few more weekends left off that, and looking forward to see how they go. Right, a couple more big sporting events to talk about now. We'll move on to the tennis quickly, and we'll discuss first the French Open, which is the next big sort of tournament coming up after the Australian Open, which is going ahead at the moment. Nadal is currently the 6-5 favourite, the clay court lover. Team is 3-1, Djokovic 4-1, Tsitsipas is 16-1, Medvedev is 20-1, Federer 20-1, and Zverev 20-1, and I think it's about 25-1 bar those. Now, Jack, Team and Nadal are two absolute clay court lovers. We know how good they are on this surface, and it shows in the betting. And you can actually see that when we go through the Wimbledon betting in a minute. Seeing the difference in prices is crazy. But this clay court, it does suit certain players, and these two are two players who just seem to relish on it.
Yeah, they do. I mean, it's hard to look past Rafa Nadal as soon as you hear the word French Open, isn't it? 13 French Opens. He's just an absolute wizard. And at the moment, he's playing so well. I mean, watching the Australian at the moment, he's beaten Fognini in straight sets. I think it was 4-2 and 4 to get to the quarters. And he's just playing really well on every kind of surface, let alone clay. When it comes to clay, I think Dominic Thiem is a battler. I mean, he came from 2 sets down to beat Kyrgios 3-2 in the Australian, because obviously that's going on at the moment. But then he's lost in straight sets to Dimitrov, which obviously he can come back from because it's in May, but you don't really want to see that, especially after a big 5-set grueling match, which obviously took it out of him. But I think this year that the Grand Slams are definitely up for grabs from one of the outside. Of course, Thiem won the US last year, I think it was. But then you look at Medvedev, who's playing well, Zverev's playing well as well. I'm not sure about the French, but even the Australian, I know Djokovic, some people say he always gets injured, but he didn't look too injured when he beat Raonic in 4 the other day. But he's just an absolute superhuman, isn't he? When he beat Fritz, the American, in 5, he battled through, and I haven't seen Djokovic let out that much emotion for a third round match. And I think he's probably the one when we move on to Wimbledon and talk about that. But the French, it's just the Rafa show, isn't it, Sam?
It is, yeah. And like you said, Djokovic is always the one to beat in sort of all of the other 3 Opens. But the French Open, it does go down to these clay court players. And team for me, 2018 and 2019 finalists. Like you say, won the US Open last year. He does look he's a much younger player. He's 27 and Nadal's 34. So there's no doubt that even if he doesn't win it this year, the team's got plenty of years left where he's probably going to be dominating the French Open. So it's going to be very interesting. The one that I looked at a price was a young player, 19, Italian, is Yannick Sinner. He's 50-1 for it at the moment. Now, I wouldn't say that he's worth a bet, but he's definitely a player to look out for, especially on the clay. course finalist last year. I think he was one of the youngest lads to win an ATP title. So he has got a lot of potential, this young Italian. For me, Yannick Sinner, he doesn't sound like an Italian, but it's often the way with some of these tennis players. There's plenty of them out there. You'd never think Nick Kyrgios was Australian, but he sounds Greek to me, but he's got a mix there. But there's plenty of them out there. But Yannick Sinner, 50-1 at the moment, a player definitely on the rise. Now, going on to Wimbledon, Jack, like you say there's going to probably be plenty of outsiders for this, and there always is at Wimbledon, always a few shocks. Djokovic for this is the 13-8 favourite. Nadal is 6-1. Federer, oh my God, the scenes if Federer won Wimbledon, he'd have to retire. He's 8-1. Medvedev 9-1. Tsitsipas is 11-1. Team 14s. Zverev 16s, and Andy Murray 25-1, and bigger the rest here, Jack. Like I said then, can you just imagine what would happen at Wimbledon if Federer were to go and win the title? Like, Sue Barker would be standing there with the mic, and I'd go, if you don't retire here, you've done it all wrong. Like, that's it. It's that can't. It's got to happen. So I'd love to see Federer win it, but if I was to screw my head on, I'd say Djokovic is just going to be really, really tough to beat. But off on the grass, Jack, a lot of these big servers are the ones to look out for. It's a surface which can be difficult to return on the grass. So these big tall lads who are serving big, the likes of Raonic, who has often done well at Wimbledon, Kyrgios as well, another big server. What did you make of this looking at it from a distance? Is there anyone at a big price that you might be able to mention?
Yeah, I love Milos Raonic. I mean, he played really well in the second set against Djokovic in the Australian. But yeah, he's just a big serve and volley merchant, isn't he? I mean, that's very harsh because he moves around the court very nicely. But it depends if crowds are going to get there. I think Federer needs the crowds. Djokovic needs the crowds. Obviously, big fan favourites when you go to Wimbledon, especially looking at Federer. But we're looking at Kyrgios. He just doesn't quite have the temperament, does he? I remember when he was playing I think it was when he got knocked out the French last year, and in his post-match interview, it was very, very honest, but he just said, I just can't be bothered. I just don't train. I don't enjoy training. I could be good. Do I want to be good? Not really sure. But when you see him in the Australian, there was crowds there like the other day. He loves it. He thrives under it. But imagine having that much skill and almost not wanting to get out of bed and practice that skill. It just absolutely dumbfounds me. But yeah, I think Djokovic is obviously always the one to beat when it comes to Wimbledon. The way he moves around the court, he is just absolutely superhuman. You look at some of these slow-mos when he's sliding everywhere on the grass. He's going to go for a sixth title. I think 13-8 is a bit short, mind you, especially when he could be injured, might not be injured, whatnot. But I think Milos Raonic has to have a chance. He always goes to Wimbledon. He always puts in a great effort, and hopefully he'll be able to do it again this year.
Yeah, it's going to be a fairly interesting tour. You mentioned Kyrgios there. I remember his quote saying that rather than training, he'd rather be in his hotel room playing NBA 2K16 on the PlayStation. Like, the bloke's head's not in it, but he has so much ability, Jack. I've always said that since I first watched him. I was actually at Wimbledon in his first ever Grand Slam match. I was in the crowd, right? It was like on court 14 or something, and I was sitting there and I was watching him going, blimey, this young lad can play. And all the Aussie fans, they're famous at Wimbledon, wearing all the yellow caps, they were saying, this lad has got something special. And I completely agree with them, and I still do. I think this player has got in his head, it's all wrong, but in his ability, he's got a Grand Slam in him. He definitely has. There's no doubting about that. He has the ability to do it. He's challenged these top players, and sometimes he just goes a bit wrong. He becomes a bit of a show off to the crowd, and
it's just
it
all
ends
up
up
there.
becoming too much. Yeah, so potentially a decent coach for someone like Kyrgios would be all he needs. I said to Jack the other day that you could end up giving him someone like McEnroe, who's known for his temperament, and McEnroe might be a man who can just control the guy, like who can just sort of say to him, let's settle down, we can focus. But I wouldn't rule out Kyrgios of winning something in the future. Maybe not win, but at least going close, because I do think he's a talented player. The ones that I've mentioned in my little preview here, I've got Zverev, who's a player who hasn't quite hit the heights at the moment, but a player who could thrive on that grass, and Tsitsipas as well, who's a 22-year-old Greek player, the best Greek player, I think one of the highest rank ever Greek players. He went out last year in the fourth round, and for those who don't know, I used to be a tennis coach, but he's got one of the most beautiful one-handed backhands I've ever seen. If you want to teach a backhand single-handed to anyone, that's how you do it. It's a really good one, like the likes of Gasquet as well. Gasquet's got a beautiful technique on his backhand, but Tsitsipas is one that I'd definitely be looking out for. But if I'm going with my head, I'm going with Djokovic to win this year. If I'm going with my heart, we'd love to see Federer win it and retire.
I'll tell you what, Sam. There's Tsitsipas last year. I remember he put on Instagram. Who knows why? But he had a sign on his head, and I think it was Kyrgios's birthday, and he put up a sign saying "Call this number." And for some reason, he put Kyrgios's phone number on this sign, and he put it on Instagram. And Kyrgios for the next month was just showing screenshots on his story saying, "Can you please stop calling me?" And he was having hundreds of calls a day, hundreds of messages. And I was thinking, what goes through your head if you're Stefanos Tsitsipas to think? Tell you what's a good idea. I'll just put Nick Kyrgios's phone number all over social media. I think he had to get a new phone in the end, but that was absolutely ludicrous.
There's some real entertaining lads on the tour, and I know that a lot of them get along really well as well. It's quite a good. It's almost like the weighing room with the tennis lads. They're really close, but it's going to be a really good couple of decent tournaments with the French Open and Wimbledon coming up. So looking forward to that. Right, we're going to quickly discuss the F1 now, and we'll kick off with the Drivers' Championships. This doesn't need us to talk about for long because Hamilton's the 5-2 on favourite for the Drivers' Championships. We know how great Hamilton is, but he does drive the best cars, and that shows with the Mercedes-Benz being the manufacturer champion at 9-2 on. So Hamilton's in with a massive chance. Verstappen's 5-1. Bottas is 11-2, and I think you can get 16-1, 20-1 about the rest of them. Jack, we might as well just discuss Hamilton here and say that he is going to probably win the Drivers' Champions. But how good is this lad?
Yeah, he's probably the best driver ever to not be given the credit because everyone just goes on about his car all the time. And let's not get around the fact is he is an absolutely cracking driver, isn't he? He's so good. I mean, I'd love to see Charles Leclerc being with a shout. I mean, Ferrari have got more power this year, which is nice to see. And you look at some of I think with the F1, it's so good because you can actually see the personalities of the sport. And I think if horse racing took a bit of what F1 has is in they gave jockeys like the chance to show everyone their personalities. I mean, you look at Danny Rick, you look at Lando Norris, they're hilarious and they have so much airtime and they have these personalities which are attached to them, whereas jockeys don't exactly have as much as that. But if you can, it's really nice to be able to actually have some loyalty and allegiance to different drivers. I know Danny Rick's the one that I look out for every single weekend because I just love him and I love him to win a Drivers' Championship. I don't think he'll be able to do it, especially in the car he's in. But yeah, it's the Lewis Hamilton show at the moment.
Yeah, and it's it definitely is, and it's a different type of horsepower that we'd usually talk about on the channel. But
you've got that written down, haven't you? You've got that written down.
I literally, do you know what? I was writing my notes on the train, and I was like, do you know, I've got to use that pun in there somewhere. But yeah, Hamilton seems the one to beat. Mercedes have got some class cars. Ferrari, I think, Jack, we were talking beforehand that they've I think they've got a lot more speed this year, from what I know, and could sort of challenge, but they'd be very tough to beat Mercedes and Hamilton. So it looks like a foregone conclusion there that Hamilton's going to win the Drivers' Championship yet again. Right, we will discuss the cricket quickly in the T20 World Cup, which Jack is a massive fan of his cricket, more than myself. But the current look of the betting at this looks like India 5-2, England 100-30, Australia 7-2, New Zealand 8-1, South Africa and West Indies 9-1, Pakistan 11-1, and 33-1. Bar those. Jack, go ahead.
Yeah, I think we have to start with England, and I'll probably finish with England. The depth we have here is just unbelievable. You look at the test side, which we have out in India at the moment. The majority of them can play T20. When you look at Joss Butler, who's keeping for us, I mean, Ben Foakes definitely is a better keeper behind the sticks, and I don't care what anyone says. His glove works is unbelievable, and he's proved that again today with his stumpings this morning on an absolute dust bowl as well. Like, it takes dust bowl to an absolute. It's when it's an absolute beach sound. It's absolutely ragging, mate. It's absolutely turning square. But yeah, I think if you look at the depth, I'd love to see Alex Hales get a return. He was number one run scorer in the Big Bash. James Vince as well had a cracking tournament in the Big Bash, and we got some lovely depth there. We got some serious depth bowlers. Sussex hold a lot of the cards there with Ollie Robinson, Joffre, etc. But yeah, I'd love to see England pull it off.
Yeah, it's going to be fantastic to see that, Jack, and I'm sure a lot of the followers will be looking forward to that more than myself, to be honest. But yeah, the T20 World Cup preview there. But before we finish with our sort of sports preview and before I give an outro to this video, we're also going to be looking forward to the Olympics. Now, we can't really preview this in terms of an event, in terms of the fact we can't sort of look at the runners like we would with a horse race and say, "Cool, Antepost, Mo Farah looks an excellent bet for the 10,000 metres." But, you know, it's going to be great to see the Olympics back. It's always a great summer event. I always get excited by that. And the fact we're going to have so much on this summer, Jack, like because of COVID, we're going to have the Euros on at the same time as the Olympics. We're going to have the tennis on. We're going to have Joshua Fury, hopefully. Like, there's going to be so much sport to look forward to. And it could be potentially, if we can get out of this mess with COVID, it could be a great end to the year. So looking forward to that. And just quickly before we go and end this video, if you are liking this content, you do like the fact that we're talking about other sports, we don't want this to become a channel where we just talk about other sports and have a little bit of horse racing. We want this to be mainly a horse racing channel. But if there is big sort of football events, you know, like Liverpool playing Manchester City, or there's a big tennis match or big rugby match, we're more than happy to kind of include that at the end of our videos for 5 minutes and have a discussion. So do give us feedback if you are enjoying these videos. But that's our preview of the sports for this year. Right, thanks for watching our, preview of sporting events for 2021. Like I say, I do hope you've enjoyed it. Jack and I will be back on Thursday where we'll have a preview of the horse racing action this weekend. Like I say, we've got likes of Wincanton, Ascot, Newbury, Riyadh. It's going to be absolutely insane, and hopefully some decent selections from myself and Jack. And next week, we're either going to do sort of an anti-post Cheltenham preview, or we were going to do a video where we look at back on Cheltenham memories, where we look at some of the great races and get your guys' feedback on some of the great races. I'm sure if we do decide to do that video, Jack and I will mention that in the preview, where you guys can comment down below, tweet us, do follow us on Twitter if you haven't already, and we can look back at those fantastic moments and see what you guys enjoyed from Cheltenham from down the years, because there's so many great performances. But Jack, I hope you enjoyed today's video.
Absolutely loved it, Sam. Thank you.
Yeah, and we will see you on Thursday. Thanks for watching.